front seal and the killer dowel pin retainer. Take your washer. This is how I do it. People might not do it this way. It's just how I'm doing it. Loosen up your fan. That's left-hand threads. Take your washer reservoir off, which is a pain, but I'll explain that later. Take your reservoir off for your coolant. There's a button here. You push that in with a screwdriver behind the shroud and lift up on it. Just stick it out of the way. 10mm bolts hold this. Your positive wire over the radiator. Take that out of the way. 10mm socket on the shroud bolts. I'm gonna take that off. There's 4 of them, 2 per side. And then take the fan and the shroud off together as an assembly. The fan off. Don't let it run through the radiator. Pull up your shroud. Just enough to get this out. Take this shroud out of here. Take your belt off, 3/8 ratchet. So you can see our front seal's leaking real bad. Oil all over everything. It isn't good for the belt or nothing like that, so put the belt off. We're gonna take this pulley off of here for the fan drive pulley. We're gonna start with that, and then we're taking the balancer off. So these are 10mm. You need a 10mm socket for this pulley. Get that off of there. If you don't have power tools, you probably want to leave the belt on and then take this pulley off. Otherwise, I just use a ratchet and break everything loose.
Okay. Wiggle this thing up here.
Comes off of there. Now we'll take our fan drive off the assembly, the bearing assembly. So we're gonna need that.
I'll need your socket for these, very convenient.
Break these balancer bolts loose. They're 15mm socket here. I got the trucking gear. If you don't have a manual transmission, you can get the barring tool, and that'll hold it while you break these loose. Or alright, so get those 4 bolts off the balancer. Just gently pry this thing around. Loosen it up. Off she goes. And then next, you need a 10mm socket, and take all these cover bolts out. So I'm taking the timing cover off. then we're gonna do the seal from the back side. You can do the seal from the front. It's just, I'm gonna check the killer dowel pin, so might as well just do everything at once. And while we're doing that, we can reseal this cover. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Some of these bolts in the timing cover are different sizes. Okay. So make a mental note or write it down. As you go, figure it out. So take all these out. We're gonna start working this cover off of here. Alright, so get all your bolts out. Pull the cover back. Gotta clean the crap out of that thing. Alright, next you just gotta do a lot of cleaning. Get all this RTV off of here. As good as you can. This is probably the most tedious part of the whole job. Scraping this whole RTV off. This, there's no silicone stuck to this timing cover, so I'm gonna run a razor around it to make sure. And we'll clean it up with a some brake clean. And then we'll pop our seal out, put it back to the same depth. But I also have a square sleeve I'm going to put on that crank. Alright, I'm putting a square sleeve on this crankshaft because that crank's all chewed up. Here's my seal. There's an installer tool. And here's, if you want to do it with this, there's a Miller part number 8281 Miller. That's the front seal installer for a Cummins. You see the beveled edge right there on the inside? That's going to go on the crank first. And you see here, this only goes on so far before you run into that key. It's got a keyway on the crank. What you can do is you can heat this ring up and it'll go on a lot easier. Or you can just put it on like this and be careful you don't screw it up. Okay, on this wear sleeve, you can heat it up, put it in, you know, hot water, hot oil, heat it with a torch. and get it on there, it'll help. If not, slide on the entire way. Or you can just start tapping it carefully on there with a hammer and a piece of wood or something until you can get your balancer on, and tighten your balancer up evenly, the bolts, and that'll push the sleeve on.
Well, that thing cannot get up the speed on the highway to save its life.
Really? When's the last time you put a filter on it?
No, it's been this way since I bought the truck.
Look at this dog. I think it's a dog. There's your sleeve. Can't go on any farther. I like it right there. That'll work perfect. Okay. So you can use your dampener as a tool. Next, we're gonna get this. I'm gonna get this seal on here. Put that in from behind. You can see on this driver. It fits right over that. And this will give you the correct depth. From the back side, surface. Nice and tight. Put your tool in there. You can see where the old seal was. Right about here. Alright, next. There's our dowel pin. I'm going to pull that Torx out of there and install the dowel pin, a killer dowel pin adapter plate, a killer dowel pin plate. And we'll put some red thread locker on that, just so I'm not worried about that. This apparently is long enough that it won't back out of the far enough for it to come out completely with how thick this is. I think this can be used on 12 or 24 valves. So I'll do that next. Alright. Out. This. Put some thread locker on there. 24 valve is going to go on with the gap towards the motor, the shelf.
Keep it down there. You want this over the dowel pin, obviously, which is not. That's what you want.
The whole idea is to do this before this becomes a problem. So with that on there, it's not gonna back out on you and ruin the motor, getting stuck in between the cam gear there and the timing cover housing. Timing gear. Take your cap off. There you go. Everything's nice and clean on this. We'll wipe it down one more time just to make sure. The oil on it, something like that. It's nice and clean.
Smush it down on there.
it back in and start putting it back together.
I should get the fan of this rod on here.